webinar is brought to you by SHeAdvocates, a ZICO Law initiative that champions diversity and inclusivity. My name is Chow Wan San, and I am a banking and finance partner of Zaid Ibrahim Co, or ZICO Law. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur, but ZICO Law is a law firm network, the first and only one present in 10 out of 10 ASEAN countries, with 18 offices and a strong workforce of 500 lawyers and staff across the region. As co-chair of SHeAdvocates and the moderator in today's webinar, I would like to thank you again for joining us. I'm also most delighted and honored to be sharing this virtual space with 4 prominent and high caliber speakers. The theme for today's webinar is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in the COVID-19 World. We will have the panel speakers introduce themselves in a bit, but before that, I would like to encourage all of our audiences to post your questions on the question and answer tab. I will do my best to direct your questions to our panel speakers throughout this hour. With that, I would like to invite Dr. Jasmin Begum, followed by Roslina, Arbak, then Lee Mei-Yin, and lastly, Hanim Hamza to give us a brief introduction of themselves. Over to you, Jasmin.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to address the audience today and to be part of this. I'm Jasmin, and I've been in Microsoft for the last 10 years, looking at the intersection between policy and technology, and I love what I do. Off to Mei-Yin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mei-Yin, and I am the CFO for McDonald's Malaysia. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. So I'm not only just the CFO, I juggle between finance, IT, supply chain, menu management, as well as shared services under my portfolio. It's been a 20-year journey with McDonald's, both in Malaysia as well as in Singapore. Yeah, so I guess over to Roslina.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Roslina, a lawyer by profession, but barely practicing for only about a year. And then I moved on into in-house counsel for a property development. I've been in the workforce for the last 28 years, with the last 5 years being in hospitality, leisure and tourism hospitality industry. But previously always been in the property development side. Enjoying very much my new found industry for the last 5 years, and I'm sure I can share a lot more with you all later. Okay, thank you. Hi, Hanim, all to you.
Thank you, Wan San. Happy International Women's Day, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I am Hanim Hamza, the Regional Managing Partner of ZICO Law. I joined ZICO Law almost 25 years ago in Kuala Lumpur. I am Malaysian. And I am now speaking to you from Singapore, where I am based as a regional managing partner, taking on this role about 5 years ago. Like Roslina, I'm a lawyer. I started out doing banking and finance work, and then progressed through corporate M&A, and then today, now I'm doing mostly management of the ZICO Law network. So I'm really delighted to be invited and to share this platform with all you wonderful ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanim. And okay, so we're going to start this webinar with a very simple question. Jasmin, given your credentials and vast experience working in various countries and even in war zone areas, you are definitely someone many people would look up to. You have even worked under the guidance of the late the late ex-UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. What was the best advice he has given to you? And is this the same advice you are passing on to your mentees?
Yes, the best advice Secretary General Kofi Annan gave me was, it is easy to be, it is nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. That was the advice that he told us, right? As a young lawyer, young ambassador at his office, being posted in the war zone was truly challenging. But carrying the blue passport, we had that opportunity to make a difference. And under his leadership, I think even I was very blessed to have him as my manager, and being able to work in the area that was very close to my heart, especially around gender mainstreaming, dealing with women in many of these very hard areas. Definitely, the words that he reminded us was that, it's very nice. And, when you're working with the UN, there is that sense of self-importance, but the fact was we were always reminded that it is more important to be nice. I think that's a mantra that I think all of us should live by.
Thank you, Jasmin. I am very comforted that, being nice is the way to go forward. Next, going forward to Hanim, I know you're Malaysian, and I do know that you are a global citizen. You've been a resident in how many countries is that? Malaysia, Japan, Indonesia, now Singapore. Can you share with us some of your struggles or experience in those countries as a career woman?
Thank you, Wan San. Yes, I'll always be Malaysian, very close to my heart. So home is still, Ipoh in that sense, because I'm from Ipoh. But yeah, at 16, I left to the UK for like a lot of Malaysians to go into further studies. And then after 9 years there, I came back to Malaysia and joined Zaid Ibrahim Co as a chambering student, and then Japan, Indonesia, and now Singapore. I would take upon, in terms of anecdotes that I guess startling would be for those listeners from Japan who probably can concur that in Tokyo, that's where my first, I guess, in terms of understanding of the gender differentiation, in terms of roles and the stress that comes with the different and opportunities as well as a lawyer in a Japanese law firm. In that firm at that particular time when I was there, the year 2000, 2005, there were, I think, about 80% or maybe even more, 90% were male partners, and only a handful of female partners, even though there were a lot of very good and talented female lawyers. It is because there is that, glass ceiling concept in Japan, particularly in Tokyo, which is very prevalent because it's very difficult for women to have to choose between, of course, being at home, staying and being a caregiver full-time vis-a-vis being at work because of the affordability of help at home. So, and then you also see the different way of business development, how it's done through karaoke, late nights, drinking out, all those. It's very tough sometimes on women that have families, to maintain, to care for. So those kind of real, what you hear about is actually true, on the ground. And then moving, I guess, another jurisdiction that I would share would be Jakarta. I think going to Jakarta as well. At that point, the dynamics of it's more also like the Malaysia-Indonesia stresses, I guess, between the two countries, and then dealing with a new corporate law landscape as well in Indonesia, where people are learning the roles of lawyers and understanding. And then a lot of work is done, business development is done on the golf course and at coffee lounges at hotels, very different from Japan, when sometimes you can just do a deal, counterpart signing online. You don't even have to meet your other side, your counterparty. So those kind of pressures and stresses. And even when I was in Jakarta, I was already a partner then, having to decide to send lawyers to far-flung places like Sulawesi for due diligence, or Lampung or things like that. I think immediately the partners will say, let's select, we must send a guy, like a male lawyer, but not giving the opportunity to a female lawyer. I think that's one of the things that I've learned as well. It's out of safety, but also that kind of opportunity could have been given, I think. So those are some of the examples that I'll share. Thanks.
And how did you encourage your female lawyers when they have matters in Sulawesi? And as a leader, do you encourage your female lawyers to just grasp hold of this challenge and just get the job done? What do you do as women leaders to protect or encourage or empower your female leaders, your female lawyers in taking on such challenges?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you must make sure that the passageway, safety is always very, very important. So, you know, in Indonesia, there are many carriers, for example, domestic carriers, but not all are, I would say, you consider safe, you know, kind of carriers. Some have a better record than others. So you ensure that when you are appointed by clients that these are lawyers, you know, travel appropriately, safely. They stay in, you know, well cared for apartments and hotels, things like that, to make sure that they are safe. And then ultimately the decision will be on the lawyer himself or herself to make, and one has to respect that decision, because, you know, I think everybody is different and their tolerance level to risk is also different. And to educate the partners not to discriminate based on the decisions that one makes. They could be doing the work in different way, you know, kind of from the back end at the office, doing the due diligence or taking care of things on the ground, like the report, rather than being on the project on the ground, for example. So different way of you cut the pie and make sure you share the workload so that everybody gets the training they need.
That's very important. But I'm also like very interested to find out, like, you know, Roslina, how did you, from a lawyer, how did you become the CEO of a different sector altogether?
Okay. Yes, a lawyer, literally just only about a year over, and then I was an in-house lawyer after that in the property development. It's always been my passion for property development since then, and I've been in that industry for a good 15 years before I actually ventured into something different. I.e., I went to head a corporate communications department of Iskandar Malaysia. Surprisingly, I wanted a change. And only after 3 years of corporate communications, I realized my passion has always been in development. So I went back into development, and as I said, at the end of the day, your career journey is the reasons why you stop at different locations or you experience different things is because it's to prepare you for the next venture, to prepare you for the next what do you call it, challenge that's going to come your way. And it prepared me for my subsequent position. I took the lead in the development, the first joint venture between Singapore and Malaysia through Khazanah and Temasek. And I was there for 5 years. I did the development down in Iskandar, and I was offered to join the hospitality industry, the Desaru specifically. If anyone has heard about it, it is in Johor. Okay, we've been in operations for the last 3 years now. I started joining them when they were still at development stage, construction stage actually, and all the way till the time it's now in operations with 4 hotels, 2 golf courses, a theme park, and the whole township development there. Asking me how interesting that journey was because I think at the end of the day, you need to realize what your passion is. And I think that's what I keep reminding even the young people. Whenever I interview young people, the first thing I ask is, what's your passion? And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And that's something I always ask without fail, because at the end of the day, with no passion, you're not going to be able to grow yourself at all. All right. Yeah. So despite the fact that I did change course somewhere in the middle of my 28 years working career, I realized where my passion was, and I stuck to it, and I am where I am right now. Yeah. And I'm happy to be able to contribute back in whichever way I can to the young generation.
Sure. You mentioned just now that, you know, with every step that you take, it basically is like a preparation ground for your next adventure. But, you know, with the pandemic, who would have expected what it has become, right? What is the silver lining that you see from this pandemic, especially, you know, based on your observation of your male colleagues and female colleagues? What's the silver lining? What's the silver lining in this pandemic from your perspective?
From my side, when we experienced it in a destination like ours, I felt that at that point of time, gender was not an issue at all. When we were faced to the crisis like that, and I'd like to just do a quick sharing here where just barely 2 weeks ago, we due to a cluster that was found in our housing staff accommodation. And being not just the managing director at that point of time, but also the head of the emergency management team of the crisis for. I have a 72-year-old colonel in my team. I have a 67-year-old, captain in the team. But yet, when you're a leader, it does not matter who you are, what gender you are. When a command is given, the direction is given for the betterment of the destination, betterment of the people. At the end of the day, the people was the one that matters. The safety, the well-being of the people was paramount as far as we are concerned during a crisis like that. And I think at that point of time, it really doesn't matter not just about gender, but also the hierarchy of work. And it was all getting together for the benefit of 1,300 staff that worked within the destination. So I think to Wan San's question, really at the end of the day, in a crisis environment, we all just work together. It doesn't matter gender, because I think at the end of the day, I advocate, I institutionalize within my company, not just diversity, but as well inclusion as well.
Mm. But it's undeniable that, women, when they have to work from home, they have other responsibilities, like, being the caregiver for the young or the elderly at home. And needless to say, like, they cannot have 100% focus as if they were to be working in the office pre-pandemic times. How did the responsibility between your staff, your employees, how did they divide that kind of responsibility? Because working from home is a challenge, regardless of whether it's male or female, right?
Is that also to me as well?
Yes, Roslina, it's to you.
Okay. I was just wondering, maybe you suggested. Okay. As I said, when you're inclusive and you're very much a person who advocates diversities and inclusion in your workforce, and the optics for women today, the optics for women in the corporate world has changed tremendously. I mean, there's no difference anymore. And with the infrastructure laid, I think what comes out of the COVID-19 pandemic, with the infrastructure, the digital era that we're living right now, women will be able to adjust, women will be able to contribute in similar ways as the men would be able to. So the infrastructure has allowed us to contribute so. I don't see any reason. We have been very supportive of all our staff. We do rotations, we do whatever that it takes so that everyone can continue to contribute to the organization.
Right. How about you, Main? Is it the same for McDonald's Malaysia? Like, what were the critical measures that you have had to take as one of the key management personnel of McDonald's Malaysia? What kind of decision, what was the hardest decision that you have to make during the pandemic itself?
I think, thanks, Wan San. I think in the early days when the lockdown was first announced, and there was a lot of, I guess, a lot of uncertainty, and there wasn't much clarity from the local authorities, right? Could we open, could we not open? What time do we open? What time do we shut? And etc., right? So, but I think one of the hardest decisions we had to make as management was actually on the temporary closure of some of our restaurants, right? Because they were situated in areas where there was hardly any footfall or traffic, right? And it was going to be economically not viable to continue to open those restaurants on a permanent basis. So choosing to close temporarily, yeah, was one. And obviously that also would affect livelihoods, right? Because the crew in those restaurants would actually not have a restaurant to go to work in. So then we ended up having to put in alternative work modes as well, and also offer to redeploy our crew to nearby restaurants, right? And I think during the first MCO as well, we do have some very young crew, right? Those above 19 in their early 20s. And obviously their parents were, I guess, quite afraid of the impact of COVID. So for some of them, I think the parents actually forced them to quit and go back home. So then we were like, oh, darn, we've lost a chunk of our staff as well because of those things, right? So yeah, so you know, having to decide on which restaurants to open, which restaurants to stay shut, and then how would we going to pay the rest of our restaurant employees. So those were pretty pragmatic but tough decisions that we had to go through. Yeah.
So yeah, well, the McDonald's in my area remain open. So thank you for making that decision, because that has definitely saved a lot of the state of my mentality, not having to prepare food on my own, and I just have to just click on a few buttons for McDonald's to be delivered to my home.
Well, thank you for the support.
Yeah, so we all talk about we talk about, like, you know, how is it managed internally, but did any of your organizations make an external contribution as well during the pandemic? Like, maybe can you tell us about, you know, what McDonald's did to give back to society during the pandemic?
Yeah, so brand trust has been a core pillar for McDonald's Malaysia for many, many years. And we do over 10,000 grassroots activities in a year, right? So that starts from the restaurants itself. But during the COVID period, especially, we had our restaurants go and contribute food to the community, to the frontliners, right? So that was to the local hospitals around their community, right? To the bomba, and also to the police stations, right? So that was from the restaurant side. From the office side, you know, for 6 months, we also contributed part of our compensation and benefits, right? Because we do get free meals. So what we did was, as an organization, we contributed 6 months worth of our own free meals to frontliners as well. Yeah.
So that says a lot about empathy itself. Is empathy like a strong theme within Microsoft, Jasmin?
Thank you, Ansan. Yes, empathy is the most important infrastructure for us. Our cultural transformation was very much anchored on growth mindset and empathy. And for just like I think what McDonald's had done, in the first 6 months, we actually went out to give teams for free for any organization that needed to work from home and have that, you know, did not have that facility before, but we did go out to give our own technology, like Teams and connectivity, or at least Teams and Exchange for the first 6 months, so that people could work from home, especially the smaller organizations that did not have the resource to have video conferencing technology.
Yes, I can tell you for sure that, you know, within ZICO, we definitely use Teams a lot. I'm on constant communication with my teammates on Teams. And it's also one of the platforms which we keep each other sane during the pandemic itself, because we can't see anyone. We're all in our own homes, and just being able to communicate with another person, it really helps in maintaining the mental stress that, you know, we face from staying at home. But going forward, Hanim, what do you what does it mean? What does equal future mean for you?
One that is unbiased. I think it's very difficult to. It's always good to try to have your biases on check, because I think a lot of us have unconscious biases by the way how we brought up, you know, the kind of our circle, our background. So an equal future would be one that is, I guess, as with parity, there's opportunities that is open and fair and transparent, and that's communicated openly. I think that is what something that I would love to see. I think within ZICO Law itself, we are, as you may know, the statistics are more than 57% senior leadership of female consisting, but I think that's also because traditionally, I think in ASEAN, a lot of women choose the legal profession. I think maybe it's a lot more lucrative for men to be in business to make more money. Lawyers don't get paid that very well in Malaysia. I think. Well, we're in good industry, but nonetheless. With help at home as well, I think we also have family, in-laws, if we have children, things like that, and affordable resource for help that makes it easier. So it's beyond that, because I don't really see us having a gender imbalance issue at the firm. But generally there's other minority rights that need to be looked at. We have the different diversity in ethnicity, in social class, in market maturities, because we have offices across from the frontier markets like Myanmar and Laos, and Vietnam and Cambodia to the more developed markets like Singapore, Malaysia. So, being astute and making sure we recognize everyone's differences and celebrate them. The other aspects, of course, are the minorities like the LGBTQI. I think that is a topic that is taboo in ASEAN. It's a difficult environment. We work together with organizations, international organizations, to promote inclusion and diversity in that front, but very difficult issues that I think we need to progress on.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. I mean, being a partner of ZICO Law, I would say that, I greatly benefit from the culture and the DNA of the firm in placing talent, skills, and performance over gender. And for that reason, although ZICO Law is one of the largest law firm in Malaysia in terms of numbers of lawyers, like Hani, we are proud of the fact that, we have many female partners and heads of department. And I would like to also emphasize here that if it's not for the trust and support from the management as well as clients like yourselves that place in us and not dictate that, you only want to work with a male lawyer, it makes it easier for us female lawyers to make a career progression. So with that, Roslina, what would an equal future be for you? Like, what is your interpretation of an equal future?
What I would like to see that a lot of organizations at least must institutionalize the diversity and inclusion policies within their corporation. And I think because the stereotyping of women is already past. All right, we're moving forward now. The optics of leadership today has changed. All right, people are more inclusive. People are more willing to accept the different genders and the different people to basically contribute to the cooperation. And this multiplicity of perspectives becomes very relevant today. And when you open up and you become more inclusive, and with infrastructure that is got in place today, your talent pool suddenly just grows a lot wider now. And the kind of experiences that people are able to bring to the table is something that it's amazing. And I must not forget to mention, for 4,000 acres of a destination, holiday destination like ours, my head of engineering and facilities management is a female. Okay,
wow.
So something that we all should be proud of, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is it's a pure merit. It's pure merit, pure ability to do so. So and all of us, and I think the rest of the team members, actually continue to align and show respect. And I think one of the things that Wan San, you mentioned earlier in the start, was about respect, right? And I think that was going to be my conclusion today. And I was going to say respect and aligning with one another is a very, very important thing to achieve whatever that we set, because we all come from different industries right here. All right. And I think whatever it is, the basic is diversity, because it's this in the face of adversities where we are right now, there's a lot of opportunities out there. All right, we should change these adversities into opportunities. And I think, and situations like this forces all of us, it doesn't matter what level of people and what gender, it forces creativity, it forces innovation.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that I force or I try to extract out of every single team members of mine, from the rank and file all the way to the top. So I think if you ask me, equal opportunities today with COVID-19, I think the platform is there, the infrastructure is there. I think it's a matter of we taking that opportunity.
You mentioned about respect, Roslina. I like to ask Mei Yin, like, you know, you sit in the directorship of McDonald's Malaysia. When you walk in to the boardroom, how do you command respect? Is that something that you think about, or is this just like, you know, unconscious? You just walk in and like, let's get this done.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, like I see Jasmin nodding. Yeah. So is that how it works, Mei Yin?
I think like what Hanim alluded to earlier, right? Generally in ASEAN countries, gender diversity, glass ceilings are maybe not as obvious, especially in multinationals or privately run companies, right? So to be honest, I've never really given much thought to having to say actively or even proactively assert my position as a female director in any situation, right? So fortunately, I guess, I've never had to face that challenge at all. Yeah, but having said that, right, so this is a personal thing that I just want to share. Some of you may not be aware that McDonald's Malaysia is now owned by a consortium with Middle East shareholders. All right, so my shareholders are from the Middle East, right? And the Middle East is, pretty much male dominated. So in my first meeting with the shareholders, right? So CFO from Malaysia, female. CFO from Singapore, female, right? So we're walking in doing our management presentations, and the shareholders were like, oh, we have female CFOs here. That's a change, right? So, you could hear a little bit of skepticism, but I think at the end of the day, after about an hour spent with them, right, they were very comfortable with our abilities and everything else. And gender was actually more a secondary thing, and ability and performance was actually, it comes back to that, right? Can you deliver? Can you do it? Can you give what you said you will do? And that's it. Yeah. Performance-based.
Yeah. Okay. So Jasmin, I saw you nodding away just now. Please share with us your thoughts.
I think coming from the technology industry, there is this challenge that the technology industry is dominated by programmers, right? Like
programmers, yeah.
Programmers and the tech bros. It is true. It is not an industry that you see a lot of women. But like me, like Roslina, walking in, I do not think that I am a woman that I need to go and defend. Just walk in to get the work done. Having that depth of information, being prepared, if anything, that you need to go in with that confidence of the information you have and being prepared, that would be critical. And yes, the tech industry is seen to be very skewed, and it is a fact, right? But it also, we see increasingly more women coming into this. We see more women data scientists who are taking part. Yes, there are not many of us who are doing this intersection between technology and policy, but I do see a number of lawyers that I've worked with within even Microsoft who have gone deep to do emerging tech policies around artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, quantum computing, and who have now become experts in their areas, and they're all women. It may have been different when I graduated 30 years ago. But now I think we have gone in and we have one superpower. And our superpower is the ability, the deep learning curve. We are willing to learn. I think we need to leverage that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that knowledge is definitely empowering, but having the confidence is a different issue altogether. What are your thoughts on this, Hanim? Like, confidence itself, do you fake it till you make it, or is confidence something that it's born? What are your thoughts?
I think it's acquired with years of wisdom. I think it takes, some experience, takes some falling and getting up again. To learn from your mistakes, and then you build that confidence. I'm sure there are those who are born confident and have the chutzpah and the, wherewithal. But regardless, I think the tin that is empty makes the loudest noise. So with that, it is good to make sure you fill up with the right artillery and information and wisdom before, you kind of articulate yourself. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for the very reason we're supposed to listen twice more than we are to speak, and half the time I think we do the opposite. And I think that's where when things get difficult or complicated, when we speak more than what we should. I think we should listen more, and then the confidence can come from many ways. It doesn't have to be the loudest person in the room, I think.
Yeah, so we have some questions on the question and answer. There is this question to Jasmin. It's based on what you said earlier, that, some say that based on experience shown that the more nice you are, the more people will manipulate you. What do you think?
Well, that's very interesting. I suppose we tend to, I think Wan Hanim just talked about wisdom and experience,
Yeah.
right? You would know. I would like to think that our BIOS, the operating system in us, is by default, we tend to care, we try to be good, right? Yes, we are always faced with this challenge of people who are not nice. But you do not respond to another person's behavior does not dictate you, right? It doesn't stop you from being who you are fundamentally. You need to respond to a certain situation appropriately, but it does not change your personality, right? We can't control how people react to you, but what is within your control, you are able to decide. And I think that has helped me sort of shape the way I think and the way I work. One of the biggest area that I have to look at is to influence policymakers to see policy in a certain way. But we advocate for policy, especially progressive policies. And again, influence becomes a critical part of the work that we do, especially in my area. And I think it is the hardest to influence people who disagree with you. And that's how you win advocates, right? You win people over to change policies. And I think in that, why does it matter to them? Why do you want to influence? What does that policy mean to that person? I think that when we think about what a certain issue or something matters to a third party and address it from an empathetic point of view, you win people over. It's a bit of a long way to answer. Yes, you can't always be nice. I understand you do become upset, but your personality is not dictated by how someone else treats you. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So Roslina, you are the CEO, the managing director of your company, and you come across to me as someone who has a very big personality, and definitely someone who's very easy to speak to, and definitely you are somebody who I think is very kind, and to me, you are open to communication, to discussion. And if, let's say, your counterparty is just being mean and they just want it their way, although it makes no sense, how do you deal with such situation and step up and show them that, I'm a woman of my words, and If I say I can deliver, I can deliver.
I guess you are faced with such things sometimes, such situations, I mean, sometimes, but I've been blessed where out of the 28 years I've worked under a female boss as well. I mean, I've gone through that. And I think to your question, whether or not, how do I deal with such situation, is one of the things I picked up from Dr. Jasmin is you've got to listen, definitely.
Yeah.
Listening is very important. Another key word is using not the fact that I'm a woman, but because I have enough information, I know I have enough facts, I have enough my support of information so that I can articulate what I think to influence. That's another keyword that Dr. used. I think it's about influencing people. The art of persuasion, I think we've heard all this jargons and all. I think that's where we have to utilize those skills that we've learned and picked up. I'm sure all of us gone through trainings over years, over the early part of our years on art of persuasions and so on. I think influencing people about what is the right thing to do, and conviction. I always tell the team, and I always do that for myself whenever I have to present something to the board as well. It's the same thing. It's about telling your story. Whatever that you want to get across, you need to tell your story. You need to and tell it with conviction. I think if they see that conviction in you, half the battle is won, and the rest is about influencing them. And probably sometimes you get, sometimes you don't get. I have to admit what you want, but at least you've done what you have to do first. Tell your story with conviction.
And most importantly, do your homework, right?
Of course, that goes with. You wouldn't go to the board if you haven't done your homework, you know.
For sure.
Okay.
We have another question on this Zoom here. How do you balance being an empathetic leader with delivering results? Have there been instances where someone tries to take advantage of your empathy? And if so, how do you deal with it? I think this question, can I just direct this to Hanim? What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Wan San. Thank you for the anonymous attendee. Empathetic leader. I guess it's very, very important to listen and to understand, your team. For a legal industry, that I lead, I mean, for ZICO Law, we have many very clever people. So all the more you need to kind of talk and listen to everybody and or at least to the leaders, the managing partners that will know what's going on the ground, what's important, certain decisions before you make a difficult decision. I think getting feedback, on the ground feedback is very, very important, so everybody feels they're part of the process. But ultimately, if it's a leader will need to make that difficult stand, and he or she will need to make it. I think that's something that you cannot run away from. But that's only after you've considered all the different nuances and consequences. This is for a legal industry, which is very different, which has, kind of professionals in them. But maybe, in a different industry, it'll be very different in terms of leadership styles. If you're in, say, like a more blue collar kind of environment, maybe it's quite different how you lobby, how you make decisions. But at the end of the day, it's very important to get sounding, I think, whether which level of sounding. You don't go for everything. Certain level of decision making, you may want to include others. Yeah.
Great. There's also the next question here on reversing traditional societal norms. Megan, what do you think about a female breadwinner and a male housekeeper?
No thoughts. Like why?
Yeah,
no, like why not? Like why not?
Why not, right?
Yeah. So it happens in my family, right? So my sister is actually the key breadwinner of the family, and her husband generally runs the household, right? So to me, it is nothing new. But I think societal norms being what they are, it takes time, it takes awareness, and it takes courage to choose. Actually, it's actually to choose to make that change, right? And what is important, I think, for equality is that both parties or everyone gets that choice, is aware that there are choices that they can make and what the alternatives are for them to make that choice, right? So there's no such thing as this is the only way, and men can only be breadwinners of the family, and women are only the carers and the nurturers in the family, right?
Yeah.
So today there are so many choices and there are so many options.
Yes.
And I think one of the silver linings in a post-COVID world is this whole thing about I think a lot of us are drifting into a flexible or a hybrid working environment, right? Having to come in the office 9 to 5 may no longer be the norm, right?
Yeah.
So the new norms are work in office and work from home, some sort of hybrid. And I think that actually gives a lot more, in a way, gender blindness, right? Because you're working from home, I don't see you. I don't really care what you
so
look
it's
like.
performance driven, right? And
Yeah,
what we're saying
yeah,
is it should be a
absolutely.
shared responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we have a question specifically for Hanim. It says here, from management perspective, one wishes to promote female lawyers or to give more opportunities to female lawyers. But in reality, we need more male lawyers to pitch for the businesses. And since men can wine and dine with clients, what do you think?
I think the anonymous attendee have not gone out with women who can also wine and dine with clients, number one. And secondly, I think the way of business development have also changed. You know, our clients have also changed. We have clients who are running fintech companies who are millennials, who maybe, you know, it's not about whining dining, it's about going for a, you know, like a sustainable talk or doing an environment, you know, an ESG related event, which is very important to them, which is passionate to them. So it's a different way now of marketing or doing business development, connecting with people, I think, authentically. So yeah, traditionally there's still maybe even golfing. There's a lot of women golfers I know who does it really well. So I think more and more different types of opportunities of business development, and this is can be open to male or female. I mean, in the end, when I was in Japan, it was difficult because it is seen very much, you know, you don't go home until the last train, or you're there kind of karaoke drinking until, you know, it's hard, you know, it's kind of hardcore BD type of work. But I think this is changing because our clients are changing and the way our work is done. It's, you know, people are also, maybe during COVID as well, a lot more homebound and know what it's like to be at home and care for families. Their priorities have changed. I think in terms of our vision, I always call the Vision 2020, we have a new lens on life, on what is purposeful, what is important. Maybe you don't need to travel so much, you don't need to do too much business development, you can get things done, you know, a lot more efficiently with technology.
Right. Thank you, Hanim. The next, I mean, because we're running a little bit short on time, I will just take another 2 or maybe 3 questions. So the next question is from Yulin, one of our projects partner. And I think this question, perhaps we can hear Roslina. What do you think about women? Do we need to work harder to prove ourselves, or perhaps, you know, is it we can't react or respond the same way as a male colleague or counterpart in order not to seem out of control or too emotional? Is this then still a form of inequality? Sorry, Roslina, you are muted.
Okay, I was on mute. Okay.
Yeah.
In the industries that I was in, I mean, traditionally, maybe when it started 20 odd years ago, in the property development side, yes, it's always been a male-dominated environment, and we've always been just following around. The females are always just following around. But I think once you have an opportunity, or an opportunity is given to you or laid before you, I think you must take that opportunity, seize the opportunity, and prove yourself, prove your ability to the wide. And if you're asking me whether you have to work 10 times harder or 3 times harder, no, just do your best, give your very best. And I think in an environment where people are much more diverse and respect the diversity, they will actually align with you in getting their ultimately one common objective. So whether or not I started out in a very male-dominated environment. Yes, agreed. But I think when the opportunity was laid before me, I seized the opportunity, and I think ever since then, I never looked back, and I gained the trust. I gained the trust and the confidence of the colleagues around me, not just the bosses, but I think the colleagues around me and the team players. And I think the rest of it is really yourself. You must seize an opportunity. The moment you have it, seize the opportunity and go for it. And don't turn back.
No turning back, because regret is one of the most painful experience anyone can experience, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, why don't we now, since this year's International Women's Day campaign is to call for a challenge, what do you want to challenge yourself, your organization, or even the audiences today? Let's start off with Mei Yin.
Okay, right. I'll just start off by saying, can we challenge the status quo today in your organization? Whatever that status quo may be, right? But pick something that you would like to challenge, be it, why do we need, okay, so don't know which industries, but do we actually need to be physically present at work? Yeah, to be, in order to deliver what we need to deliver, right? So choose to challenge that status quo.
Challenge the status quo. Okay, how about you, Jasmin? What do you call for challenge?
My call is to enable, be an enabler, and challenge your organization, your team members to provide a seat at the table for other women, younger people, doesn't matter who it is, and provide that opportunity for them to be heard. I think the challenge is to enable and give them a place at the table to be heard.
Yeah, to speak up for inequality, right? How about you, Hanim? What would your challenge for the organization, for our audience to be?
Effective representation. I think there's something I was just canvassing, asking some of my partners that what would they want to see for IWD. And it'll be that, because we have representation, but make sure it's effective, that they have, the power and the voice proper and heard, I guess.
Yeah, not just having a platform, but an effective platform, that is. Yeah. And Roslina, what would your call for challenge be?
Raise the bar on mutual respect and common alignment.
Yeah.
For one, with a common objective. That's it.
I think for me, my call for challenge would basically be 3 R's. The first R would be for equal respect. Like, everyone has the equal right to be seen, to be heard, and most importantly, be effectively seen and heard, and be conscious of unconscious biasness, but at all times exercise empathy. So this goes for both genders regardless. My second challenge would be for people to have equal responsibilities, that all employees, everyone at home should have an equal command and expect to share the same responsibilities for the role that they're in. And the third would be for recognition, that perhaps we can ask for to basically eliminate as much unconscious biasness towards the gender. We can ask for to blind or semi-blind CVs so that the gender of the candidate can be omitted, so that you only look at their skills, their talents, their credentials, and from that recognize who they are for who they are, and not basically promote someone just because they happen to be most convenient to be at workforce, to be seen at workforce. So with that, I will hope that the conversation of equality does not end here today. As part of International Women's Day, I would like to invite all of you to participate in the Choose to Challenge campaign to show your commitment to choose to challenge inequality, call out biasness, question stereotypes, and help forge an inclusive world. For the audiences, I hope that you can click on the raise hand tab to show your solidarity in this. For the panel speakers, I would like to invite you to raise your hand so that my colleague will be able to take a snapshot of us and post it on our ZICO group's Instagram and LinkedIn account. So let's all do this right now. Audiences, please click on the raise hand tab. Let's all choose to challenge. Thank you very much. Wei, I hope you got that. And with this, I thank you all again for joining us today on this webinar. And to our panel speakers, any last words of advice to our audiences? We still have 1 minute left. Hanim, why don't you go first?
Be bold, be bold. I like Roslina's passion stance, so I'm going to steal it. Say, find your passion, find your team.
Okay, before someone else steals Roslina's words, so Roslina, why don't you go next? Words of advice.
Respect diversity and push inclusion into our daily organizations.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmin.
And thank you, ZICO, of course.
Thank you, Roslina. How about you, Jasmin?
Enable, empower, make a difference.
Yes. And Megan, last but not least?
None of us is as good as all of us. And that came from Ray Kroc.
Thank you. That's all very, very well said. And I've learned a lot from this webinar from all you ladies panel speakers. We have more questions, and unfortunately, we don't have enough time to answer all of these questions. If you would like to have a response to this, I would like you to email us your questions, and then hopefully we can respond to you individually. And with that, it's 5 o'clock right now. And thank you very much again for joining and participating, and watch this space for the next SHeAdvocates webinar. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.